Okay. The first thing that I have, it's from, let's see, the Metropolitan University. No, sorry, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, actually. So the article comes from James Doyle, and this is the Indigenous Arts of the Caribbean. So I thought this might be quite interesting. Um, he did this back in June 2021, just for reference. So what he wrote is, in the centuries before 1492, the Taino peoples of the islands of the Greater Antilles and people from the diverse civilizations of Central and South America exchanged materials and ideas across a rich maritime network around the rim of the Caribbean Sea. Artists throughout the region created spiritually charged sculptures and regalia in green stone and gold for men and women to wear in ceremonial performances. Visual artists played important roles in maintaining their communities through these creations, reinforcing the political power of their patrons and connecting them to grander mythological narratives. Knowledge of Taino rituals and traditions derives primarily from late 15th and 16th century Spanish accounts. Other information comes from archaeologists who have recognized migrations from coastal South America to the islands through the presence of distinct ceramic styles in vessels created by potters for use in ritual acts. Early pottery vessels from the Greater Antilles testify to the creativity of migrants from the mainland who utilize geometric designs. So they're talking about the mainland of South America. Later Taino pottery features modeled figural imagery and abstract motifs. Caribbean peoples understood deities and ancestors to inhabit trees, stones, and other aspects of the landscape. This divine environmental force, known as Semi or Semi to the Tainos, was a central concept in art and ritual. Men and women leaders accessed Semi and mythological knowledge through ceremonies and harnessed this sacred power through the production of sculpture. The process of creating semi-figures was a collaboration between political leaders, ritual practitioners, and master artists. First, he or she perceived a connection with a tree or stone. The spirit within would then demand that the leader summon a ritual specialist who would reveal the Zemi's identity through a ceremony in which the specialist inhaled the vegetal hallucinogen known as cohoba. Taino artists then sculpted the tree or stone into the specific bodily form of the divine power as described by the specialist. The leaders became the caretakers of these Zemi embodiments, which in turn became powerful agents in their communities. Anthropomorphic stands contributed to important rituals, functioning as surfaces on which practitioners activated sacred substances like cohoba. The physical effects of Taino ritual acts are often visible in the semi itself. It may have widened, watering eyes, a grimacing expression, an emaciated figure due to fasting. One of the most important surviving Taino sculptures is a wooden ritual stand embodying a zemi that crouches as it bares its teeth and tears stream down from its eyes, which is that picture there. I'll go through all of these once the article's done. So the figure wears a woven cap, ear ornaments, and wrappings on its limbs. The exceptionally well-preserved surface of the wood suggests that original community members revered and protected this semi for centuries. A similar version of the stand, shaped out of rough sandstone, features a different crouching figure with hollow eyes, which is that one there. Semi-sculptures known as three-pointed stones or trigonalitos had a symbolic connection to yucca, which is also cassava, a staple root crop. I'll go back up, you might be able to see it. See it a little bit. Appearing in various sizes and featuring human-like and animal-like Zemi imagery, they may have served as tangible representations of the mountainous island landscape and may have held some elusive spiritual significance. Taino artists also obtained special variegated or banded stones in raw form, reduced them to a rough shape through percussion, striking with another stone, and then polished them to create almond-shaped ceremonial axes. Axes were vital tools for clearing forests for agriculture, and the blue-green color of these trade objects also referred to water and the fertility of freshly sprouting staple crops such as maize. Artists created pendants and maskettes, known as geezers, in the images of zemis for leaders and ritual specialists to wear in ceremonies. Though reduced in scale, the pendants feature the same zemi imagery as their larger sculptural counterparts, including figures with enlarged eyes, grimacing mouths with bared teeth, and contorted postures. These pendants may have indicated an affiliation with a specific political group. They were also symbolic of spirituality, perhaps acting as talismans to project favorable energies from the wearer. Stone heads with rounded faces were conceived of as a material extension of the inner power of leaders, and they exchanged these objects with one another to promote diplomacy. All around the Caribbean Sea, people came together to build large public plazas that served as the sites for dances, musical performances, and processions that united communities. Luxury regalia worn during rituals in these these spaces reinforced the political authority of powerful men and women. Indigenous leaders known as caciques competed against one another for claims over territory and subjects. They also organized trade across land and sea to obtain luxurious materials that formed part of their wealth and were fashioned into important symbols of political power, such as pendants, axes, and woven, beaded, and feathered belts and headdresses. Innovative vessels, such as a marble vase from Honduras with bat-shaped handles, were also valuable exchange goods. You can see it there. Objects with bat or bird-like symbols convey the importance of flying creatures to the identities of leaders or ruling families. For centuries, sculptors throughout the region depicted winged creatures in various precious stones to convey the ritual importance of the power of flight. A metate, grinding stone or stool from Costa Rica features bird-like creatures that may have symbolized a particular lineage or reinforced the political prowess of a single leader, which is that picture there. So the majesty of flight was also a pervasive theme in prestigious gold and greenstone regalia, such as pendants from the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia. In such objects created by Tirona gold workers, idealized leaders wear elaborate headdresses featuring fearsome birds to project divine power. You can see it right there. You can see a bird wearing a headdress. Artists in what is now Costa Rica excelled at working imported jadeite, a major feat without metal tools. Avian pendants represent recurrent themes of ritual flight and sacrifice, and military might may have been equated with predation by raptors. Several figural pendants represent the taking of trophy heads, an important display of political power over conquered groups throughout the Caribbean. One example features a long-beaked bird that clutches a small stylized trophy head in its talons. Abstract wing pendants demonstrate a consistent shape across regions, raw materials, and time periods, suggesting that they functioned as transcultural symbols of political power when worn as regalia. From the 20th century to the present, Caribbean artists have often drawn upon the Caribbean landscape and ancestral traditions, both indigenous and those that traveled during the forced mass migration of enslaved peoples, to create an enduring legacy of Afro-Indigenous forms of expression. Wilfredo Lam, for example, was an artist of Afro-Chinese descent who was renowned for using art as what he later declared an act of decolonization. In the 1930s and 1940s, he created his own visual glossary of Afro-Caribbean deities and spirits, fusing them with modes of representation that drew on European Cubism and Surrealism. He referenced West African religions such as Santeria or Lukumi and Vodun or Voodoo that incorporated indigenous Taino practices as they spread throughout the Antilles. Just as the trees and stones of the islands spoke to the Taino peoples several centuries prior, the natural ecology and agricultural production of Lamb's birthplace inspired his artistic practice. So what I'll do, I will go back to the top. Okay, so let's see. So I think the first one was a bowl. Yeah, it is. See if they've got anything else. I know they had some other pictures. Okay, so this one was the Zebi Cahoba stand that I told you about. And then basically they were saying some of the facial expressions that you see of these are from after they kind of consumed the Cahoba. So it was kind of like a hallucinogen. So when they would take it, it would alter their state. So their eyes would enlarge, and then you'd get certain facial expressions as a result. And they would literally carve what they see, how they see the person reacting after ingesting it. So that's the reason for how the faces look the way they do. Shall I keep going?
Stop when you wanna.
Okay. So the next one I've got is from archaeology.org. And this is a publication of the Archaeological Institute of America. So this is about the Caribbean artifact collection that was returned to Costa Rica. And this article was done on Thursday, July the 8th, 2021. So again, quite recent. So these images that you see here, these are from the National Museum of Costa Rica. Okay, so San Jose, Costa Rica. So La Prensa Latina reports that the Brooklyn Museum has completed the transfer of more than 1,000 artifacts to the National Museum of Costa Rica. The objects, which are thought to have been acquired by American railroad tycoon Minor Keith between 1870 and 1910, include a 260-pound tombstone, a grinding stone or metate, vases, including a large one in the shape of a person, axes, chisels, lances, urns, domestic utensils, and a stone figure of a man whose hands are tied in front of him. The prisoner's face, bearing an expression of sadness or pain, is turned to the side. The collection that's coming in is very diverse, said archaeologist Javier Vallas. There are artifacts from the Central Caribbean, but others come from the South and Northwest that give us valuable scientific aspects to investigate, he added. The artifacts will be verified, cleaned, restored, and catalogued. Costa Rica first enacted legislation to protect its patrimony in 1938. So that article was really short. But again, this was to do with ancient artifacts from Costa Rica being returned from a museum in Brooklyn Museum to be precise. That now takes us to National Geographic. So this one right here, this is hints of mysterious religion discovered in Wales' highest lake. So gold artifacts, precious shells, and evidence of animal sacrifice in Lake Titicaca point to a belief system that helped organize the ancient Tiwanaku state, researchers claim. And this is by Erin Blakemore, and this was published April the 1st, 2019. Sorry, just get rid of that. And Okay, so about 1,200 years ago, a reef in the middle of Lake Titicaca in what is now Bolivia became the repository of a people's most valued possessions. In 2013, a sparkling cache of those objects was unearthed by underwater archaeologists. 6 years later, researchers think they now know what the objects represent, evidence of a religion that helped the Tiwanaku state become a dominant force in the region. Results of the excavation were revealed in a paper published today in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Gold objects, metal ornaments, semi-precious stones, and incense burners recovered at the site suggest the reef, located near the Island of the Sun, home to multiple Tiwanaku sacred sites, was once used as a ritual site for the ancient state. So this picture here, these are ritual offerings include gold, semi-precious stones, and incense burners adorned with pumas. Anybody that knows the puma is a big cat and it is native to the Americas. Anthropologists are still piecing together details of the religion that helped make the Tiwanaku state, which existed between about 500 AD and 1000 AD, and extended to Chile and Peru at its height, so powerful. The Tiwanaku people didn't leave behind significant traces of military might, and the state is thought to have amassed influence from religion and trade. And though archaeologists have discovered plenty of archaeological evidence of Tiwanaku religious beliefs, they're still piecing together the meanings of the religion and how it may have contributed to the state's expansion. Artifacts found from the site, known as Koa Reef, include 2 gold medallions that represent Tiwanaku's wraith-faced deity, and metal plaques that portray a mythical puma-llama hybrid. Divers also recovered the remains of real animals, including the bones of at least 3 young sacrificed llamas. Another surprising find was 5 items made from spondylus shells and 1 complete shell. The mollusks were important to early Andean cultures but are native to the Pacific Ocean, not Lake Titicaca. The fact that the shells were over 1,200 miles from their nearest habitat indicates both the Tiwanaku people's trading relationships and the shell's great value. Finding so many spondylus was really remarkable, said Jose M. Capriles, an anthropologist and assistant professor of anthropology at Penn State University and one of the paper's authors. Why did the Tiwanaku worshippers leave such valuable objects behind in the high Andes lake? Capriles sees the sacrifices as evidence of a religious tradition in the making, one that helped the Tiwanaku state grow and flourish. By using valuable, desirable materials in rites, Tiwanaku worshippers showed their commitment to their new religious traditions, customs that are huge in terms of building societies, Capriles says. These deities that people are creating are becoming institutions that govern behavior. So in this picture, you've got a spondylus shell, center, was a precious object in the Tiwanaku state, an example of the valuable offerings left in the lake. There it is, this one here, this big one in the middle. The new religion set the groundwork for moral and behavioral norms. If you behave well, you are immortal, says Capriles, but if you're bad, you are going to get punished by the chief's deity. It also meant that people could move from place to place, securing the knowledge that their shared beliefs would keep them from being perceived as outsiders. This, the team posits, helped the Tiwanaku state expand. At its height, the society had amassed significant political influence, economic power, and cultural cachet. But after its collapse around 1000 AD, it was overshadowed by the cultures that came after it. The Tiwanaku is the greatest Native American empire that many Americans have never heard of, says Paul Goldstein, an archaeologist in the Department of Anthropology at UC San Diego, who is also affiliated with the Scripps Center for Marine Archaeology. Goldstein was not involved with the research. Every time we find something that reflects the complexity of the society, it adds to our deeper knowledge of the origins of complex societies worldwide. The Tiwanaku state may feel far away, but for Capriles, its artifacts helped bring its people to life. They were grateful, they made offerings, he says. They were just people like you and me. So there's that. I do have another one from National Geographic. I'll make it slightly larger. Yeah. So this one is to do with the first pictures, Peru's rare unlooted royal tomb. So photographs from the discovery of the first unlooted royal tomb discovered from the Wari Empire. The 1,200-year-old tomb is filled with precious artifacts and human sacrifices. Published 5th of November 2017. So this one's a gallery. So if I click here, it should give us some words as well. So you can see some rings, 2 rings on there.
Fire.
So you see, I don't know, Chief Eager, do you remember how we used to wear those? Copper Thoughts might remember this as well. Actually, people in the chat might remember this as well. You know those old school gold coins we used to wear with the medallions in them. I used to have one of those.
Oh, are you talking about the sovereign rings? Yeah, fair.
Yeah. I even used to have one of those as well.
As a child, I did as well. I had the pendant as a child, and the chain and the rings. My parents.
And I never had the chain, but I had, as a teenager, I had like one that I used to wear like all the time, literally like just like this. But obviously, it would have been in all gold, like 9 carat.
Yeah, I know what you mean, bro. My younger brother's got a gold sovereign ring.
Yeah.
But this is where they steal our stuff from, you know. The idea or the concept of having a ring, you know, comes from the Americans. Because we was wearing jewelry, chains.
Right. So you remember as well, not just the sovereign. Remember, it was a sovereign ring, but it also used to have another name. It used to also be called a St. George's ring.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah. That's how I used to remember. They used to refer to, like, if you bought it in a catalog over here, it will be like the formal name. They call it a St. George's ring.
Yes. But also sovereign. Go ahead.
Now I was saying, and there was ones like with specific stones as well, where we used to wear like certain birthstones as guard rings, just to add.
Yeah.
Facts.
All of that stuff.
Even copper, even with the marijuana leaf as a sovereign as well. People remember that.
Yeah. So I was quite happy to see that. I was quite surprised, because you just never know what you're going to find, really and truly. Like, I never know what I'm going to find. But yeah, it just reminded me of that. But let's see, the first picture they've got here is these guys here, right? So they're saying Peruvian project co-director Roberto Pimentel, Nita to the left, bioarchaeologist Dr. Wiesław Wykowski, center, and archaeologist Dr. Patricia Praska, gears, on the right, start digging the first layers of human remains at the main chamber. In the foreground, a massive carved wooden maze protrudes from the chamber, an ancient tomb marker. When the team found it, says University of Warsaw archaeologist Milos Gears, we knew then that we had the main mausoleum. So just as a recap, that's the picture there. We go here. So this picture now, protected from looters by an upper layer consisting of 30 tons of loose stone. The remains of this Wari queen lay exactly where Wari mourners left her some 1,200 years ago. Archaeologist Krzysztof Makowski Hanula, the project scientific advisor, describes the mausoleum as a pantheon where all the Wari nobles of the region were buried. So like a royal burial ground, if you will. So that's the remains there that they found. So this was remains of a Wari queen. If we keep going. Wari attendants placed most of the dead in a sitting position, then bundled them with precious possessions in cloth woven from llama wool and cotton. But archaeologists found 6 of the bodies lying in an extended position. These may have been human sacrifices or offerings to the gods. So you can see they're wrapping them in materials that are from the land, llama wool. You know, the llama is native to the Americas, and the Americas had its own species of cotton as well. So here now, you see this picture here. So as archaeologists dug in one side chamber, they unearthed the remains of a warrior queen and several regal offerings, including a brilliantly painted ceramic flask on the right and an alabaster drinking cup, which you see on the left there. So you've got your warrior pot here and your alabaster drinking cup over here. Okay, so this image now, with eyes wide open, a painted warrior lord stares out from the side of a 1,200-year-old ceramic flask found with the remains of a warrior queen. Gears and his colleagues think the warrior may have displayed the body of the queen after death in a royal ancestor cult. And they've actually got some of the warrior stuff, not even warrior, but the mochi stuff. They've got some of that in over here actually. You can go and see some of it over here in England. They've got some of their stuff. And then back to this now. The newly discovered tomb contained many rare treasures, including this drinking cup carved from alabaster. It is the only such cup known from ancient Andean sites. So it's one of a kind that they've found. They haven't found any others like it. So you can see these now. Got some beaded objects here. Again, these seem familiar as well, because I'm sure back in the day, like children used to wear stuff like these.
Professor, I'm sorry to interject, but the children have those sweets today. You know, the elastic.
Yeah.
Them with wear on
them refresher candy bracelets.
Sweets today, for the children.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Keep going.
So still caked in strings of semi-precious stone beads from the tomb await cleaning and conservation. So I wouldn't even say it's too far of a reach to say that the candy bracelets were inspired by these, you know. So we've got our next image that you see here. So one of the things that amazed and delighted archaeologists was the excellent preservation of wooden artifacts in the imperial tomb. Some 1,200 years ago, a warrior artist carved a supernatural winged being on the handle of this weaver's spoon. So again, we know from past reading today that winged creatures and animals were very big on that. They were very big on flight and enlightenment. But a lot of their wooden things stayed well preserved and didn't decay. Okay, so this next image here, bending to his work inside the burial chamber, archaeologist Milos Gears brushes away sediments from a small cane box. Gears and his colleagues found gold weaving tools tucked inside such boxes. The warrior queens, they now surmise, wove cloth with gold instruments. So that's what that box is there. So that's the cane box. So they're saying inside that box they found tools made from gold that were used for weaving like materials. Okay, so our next picture, Peru's rare unlooted royal tomb. So I think that is the end of the gallery. Okay, and then the last thing that I have here, this is dated February the 17th, 2022, so literally last year. And I doubt most people heard about this. And this was the FBI returned stolen indigenous artifacts to SVG government. So concerning this, on Thursday, the 20th of January, 2022, representatives from the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, returned stolen Vincentian artifacts to the Embassy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in Washington, D.C., USA. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines is in the Caribbean. The artifacts from St. Vincent and the Grenadines are tools believed to be used by the indigenous people. The artifacts were found in a raid which was conducted in 2014 at the home of a 91-year-old missionary, Donald C. Miller, in the state of Indiana. It is not certain how and when Mr. Miller came in possession of these, but it is believed to be from a trip to the country in 1995. The raid revealed tens of thousands of rare cultural artifacts, which the FBI suspected may have been obtained in violation of antiquities laws. Given the quantity, experts anticipate that it could take decades to sort through all of the objects, determine their legality, and figure out where and when they were purchased. Some artifacts have already been repatriated to countries such as Colombia, Canada, Ecuador, New Zealand, Spain, and China. The return of the artifacts was done at the embassy in downtown Washington, D.C., and was received by Minister Counselor, Deputy Permanent Representative, Mr. Amari Seitu Williams, on behalf of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Provisions are being made for them to be returned to the country. All right, and that's pretty much it from me.
Great. Fire! This is gold.